The call came at exactly 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of my review of architectural blueprints for the new Williams Hospitality Resort project in Carmel. My phone vibrated across the polished surface of my desk, and I noticed my brother's name flashing on the screen. But when I answered, it wasn't Michael's voice that greeted me. It was his fiancée, Victoria. "Sarah, I'm so glad I reached you," she said, her tone dripping with that overly sweet, artificial enthusiasm she always used whenever she wanted something. "I'm calling about our engagement party this Saturday." I leaned back into my executive chair and let my gaze drift toward the panoramic view outside my office windows. From the 45th floor, San Francisco Bay stretched endlessly before me, the late afternoon sun glinting off the water, with Alcatraz Island faintly visible in the distance. 8 years ago, when I had first launched Williams Hospitality Group, this very office had cost me $12,000 a month in rent. Now, I owned the entire building. "What about the party, Victoria?" I asked calmly. "Well, there's been a slight change of plans," she replied. "We've decided to make it more intimate. You understand, right?" I set my pen down slowly, giving her my full attention. Over the past 6 months of her engagement to my brother, Victoria Chin had gone out of her way to make it clear that she saw me as an inconvenience, someone she wished didn't exist in her carefully curated version of Michael's life. "I'm not sure I do understand," I said. Her laugh was quick, sharp, and dismissive. "Oh, Sarah, let's be real. This is going to be a very exclusive event at the Bayview Country Club. We're spending over $50,000. The guest list includes San Francisco's elite, Michael's law firm partners, my father's business contacts, and several members of the country club board. It wouldn't be appropriate for you to be there." She paused, then added with thinly veiled contempt, "I mean, look at your lifestyle. You drive that old Honda, you live in a tiny apartment, you work at that small nonprofit nobody's ever heard of. We just can't have you around, making people uncomfortable." My eyes flicked to the framed photograph on my desk from last month's groundbreaking ceremony in Maui, me standing beside the governor and three prominent CEOs, holding a ceremonial golden shovel. Beneath the image, the caption read, "Williams Hospitality Group announces $2.8 billion Pacific expansion." "Victoria," I said evenly, "I think you may have misunderstood my circumstances." "It's better if you just stay home," she continued, unfazed. "We don't want any awkwardness on our special day. This party is meant to celebrate success and accomplishment, not whatever it is you do at that charity." I slowly turned in my chair, taking in the walls lined with industry awards, magazine covers bearing my photograph, and architectural models of the 12 luxury resorts I had developed across 3 countries. "I see," I said quietly.
I knew you'd understand, she replied cheerfully. You've always been good at knowing your place in the family. Now I really have to go. The caterers are waiting, and planning the social event of the season is incredibly demanding. One quick question, Victoria, I interrupted. Where exactly are you hosting the party? At the Bayview Country Club, of course, she said proudly. Michael used his connections to secure the grand ballroom. Apparently, there was a waiting list, but his firm pulled some strings. It's going to be perfect. I glanced at the Bayview Country Club membership certificate mounted neatly on my office wall, the same one issued 3 years ago when Williams Hospitality Acquisitions had finalized the purchase of the entire club. The grand ballroom is stunning, I said with a faint smile. Excellent choice. Thank you, she replied smugly. I knew someone with taste would appreciate it. Now I really must run. I'm sure you have whatever it is you do to get back to. Actually, Victoria, I do have some business to take care of, I said calmly. Enjoy your party. Thanks. Bye, Sarah. The line disconnected. I stared at my phone for a moment before laughter escaped my lips. Victoria had just uninvited me from an engagement party being hosted at a country club I owned because she thought I was too poor to attend. A soft knock sounded at my door, and my assistant, Jennifer, stepped in. "Ms. Williams, your 3:30 meeting is here." "Cancel it," I said, still smiling, "and get me the general manager of Bayview Country Club on the line. Immediately." She nodded. "Anything else?" "Yes. Pull up the Chin Williams engagement party reservation for this Saturday. I want to personally review every detail." 20 minutes later, I was speaking to Robert Martinez, the club's general manager. "Ms. Williams, what a pleasant surprise. How may I assist you?" "Robert, I understand there's an engagement party scheduled for this Saturday evening, the Chin Williams event?" "Yes, just a moment," he replied. "Here it is. Victoria Chin and Michael Williams, Grand Ballroom, Saturday night. They've selected our premium package, champagne reception, 5-course dinner, open bar, and a live orchestra. It's one of our more significant events this month." "I want it canceled," I said. There was a brief silence. "Canceled, ma'am? May I ask if there's an issue with the arrangements?" "The issue," I replied calmly, "is that the host deliberately uninvited the owner of this establishment, believing I wasn't worthy of attending." Another pause followed, longer than the first. "I understand. That is quite unusual. Would you like me to contact Miss Chin regarding the cancellation?" "Yes," I said. "Tell her exactly what I told you, that the event is canceled because she chose to exclude the owner of the venue." "Understood, Ms. Williams. And their deposit?" I leaned back in my chair, considering it. The deposit was likely around $15,000, a significant amount for most people, but barely a rounding error in Williams Hospitality's revenue. "Keep it. Consider it a lesson fee." "Very good, Ms. Williams. I'll make the call immediately." At 6:47 p.m., my phone rang. Michael's number this time, but I could hear Victoria screaming in the background before he even spoke. "Sarah, what the hell is going on? The country club just called and canceled our engagement party."
They said the owner requested it because Victoria uninvited someone. This doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense, Michael. Victoria called me today to uninvite me from your engagement party because I'm too poor to be seen at such an upscale event. That's impossible. You don't own Bayview Country Club. Actually, I do. Williams Hospitality Acquisitions purchased it 3 years ago as part of our luxury venue portfolio. Silence. Complete, total silence. Why? You own Bayview Country Club? I own Bayview Country Club along with 17 other luxury venues across California. I also own 12 resort properties, 4 urban hotels, and a hospitality management company that generates approximately $800 million in annual revenue. More silence. But Sarah, you work at a nonprofit. You drive a Honda Civic. You live in that small apartment in the Mission. I volunteer on the board of 3 nonprofits because I believe in giving back to the community. I drive a Honda Civic because it's reliable and environmentally responsible, and I live in a 3,500-foot loft in Soma that I bought for $4.2 million. This is insane. You're telling me my sister is a multi-millionaire and I never knew about it? Michael, when's the last time you asked me about my work? When's the last time anyone in the family showed interest in what I do for a living? He was quiet for a moment. But I don't know. I'll answer for you. Never. You all assumed that because I dress casually and drive a modest car, I must be struggling financially. Nobody ever bothered to ask about my actual life. Victoria's voice came through clearly now, shrill and panicked. "This is a joke, right? Some kind of mistake. Sarah can't possibly own the country club." "Victoria," I said, "would you like me to have security escort you from the premises when you arrive on Saturday, or would you prefer to find that the doors are simply locked?" "You can't do this. We have a contract. We paid a deposit." "You have a contract with a business I own. I can absolutely do this, and your deposit will be kept as compensation for the inconvenience of dealing with someone who judges people by their appearances." Michael's voice was strained. "Sarah, Please, this is our engagement party. All our friends are invited. Victoria's family is flying in from New York, my law firm partners. Michael, 4 hours ago, your fiancé told me I was too poor to attend your engagement party at my own country club. Now you want my help to make sure it happens. We didn't know it was your country club. You also didn't know anything else about my life, my career, or my achievements. You made assumptions based on stereotypes and surface appearances. I could hear Victoria crying in the background now, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. "What do you want?" Michael asked quietly. "I want you to understand that success comes in many different forms, and just because someone doesn't flaunt their wealth doesn't mean they don't have it. We understand that now. Do you? Because this isn't just about the money, Michael. This is about the fact that for 8 years, your family has treated me like an underachiever while I was building one of the most successful hospitality companies on the West Coast." "We didn't know because you never asked. You made judgments and stuck with them, never bothering to look deeper." My other line was ringing, probably another property manager calling about one of the evening events at our other venues. "Michael, I have to go. I have a business to run. Multiple businesses, actually. Wait, Sarah, please, can we work this out? Can we start over?" I looked out at the city skyline, where the lights of 3 of my hotels were beginning to twinkle in the early evening. In a few hours, thousands of guests would be enjoying world-class service at Williams Hospitality Properties, never knowing they were staying at facilities owned by the woman Victoria Chin thought was too poor for an engagement party. "You can start over with yourselves," I said, "but your engagement party is canceled. Find another venue." "But where? Everything nice is booked months in advance." "That's not my problem anymore. You wanted an event without me there, so now you have no event at all." I hung up. 20 minutes later, Victoria called directly. "Sarah, please, I made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry for what I said. I had no idea you were successful." "Victoria, you're not sorry for what you said. You're sorry that what you said had consequences." "That's not true. I genuinely apologize. I was wrong about everything." "Were you wrong, or were you just uninformed about my net worth?" She was quiet. "Victoria, if I were actually the poor nonprofit worker you thought I was, would my exclusion from your party have been acceptable?" I don't know." "You do know. You thought it was perfectly fine to exclude someone based on their perceived economic status. The only thing that's changed is that you discovered I have money." "Please, Sarah, our families are already here. Victoria's parents flew in from New York. Michael's law partners are expecting to attend. This will be humiliating." "More humiliating than being uninvited for my own brother's engagement party because I'm supposedly too poor to be seen there?" "We'll make it up to you. We'll have you at the wedding, front row seating, whatever you want." I almost laughed. "Victoria, you're planning to have me at the wedding as long as I'm rich enough to deserve an invitation." "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant. And here's the thing. I don't need your approval or inclusion. I have a successful business, meaningful work, and relationships with people who value me for who I am, not what I'm worth." "But you're Michael's sister." "Yes, I am. And Michael just learned that his sister built a hospitality empire while he thought she was an unemployed nonprofit volunteer." My phone beeped with another call. Jennifer from my office. "I have to go, Victoria, but let me leave you with some advice. Next time you meet someone who doesn't fit your preconceptions about success, try asking questions instead of making judgments." "Sarah, wait." I clicked over to Jennifer's call. "Miss Williams, I have the mayor's office on the line."
They want to discuss your proposal for the affordable housing project downtown. Put them through. And Jennifer, clear my Saturday evening. I'm going to be working. That Saturday night, while Michael and Victoria scrambled to find an alternative venue for their engagement party, they ended up at a chain restaurant in Daly City. I was in my office finalizing the purchase of a historic hotel in Napa Valley, a $67 million acquisition that would become Williams Hospitality's flagship wine country property. At 9 p.m., my phone rang. Michael again. "Sarah, I wanted to call and
and apologize. Really? Apologize for what specifically? For letting Victoria treat you that way, for not defending you when she made those comments about your financial situation, for 8 years of making assumptions about your life instead of asking about your actual achievements. I set down the contract I was reviewing and for being a terrible brother. You've built something incredible, and instead of celebrating your success, I let my fiancé humiliate you because we thought you didn't have enough money to deserve our respect. Where are you calling from? Chuck Cheese in San Mateo. It's the only place we could find that had availability tonight. I couldn't help but smile at the mental image of Victoria Chin in her designer dress, trying to celebrate her engagement party surrounded by screaming children and animatronic mice. How's the party going? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Victoria's parents are mortified. My law partners made polite excuses and left after 20 minutes. The champagne is sparkling cider, and the 5-course dinner is pizza and breadsticks. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. We deserve this. He was right. I wasn't sorry. Victoria had wanted a party that excluded people she deemed unworthy, and now she was having exactly that, a celebration that reflected her values and judgment. Michael, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you actually want to marry someone who judges people by their bank account balance? Long silence. I don't know, he said finally. A week ago, I thought Victoria was sophisticated and discerning. Now I realize she's just shallow and cruel. That's something you'll have to figure out for yourself. Will you help me understand what you've built? I want to learn about your business, your success, who you really are instead of who I assumed you were. I looked around my office at the architectural plans for 3 new resorts, the acquisition documents for 2 luxury hotel chains we were purchasing, the industry awards recognizing Williams Hospitality as one of the fastest-growing companies in the sector. I'd like that, Michael, but not because I need your approval or validation, because you're my brother, and I'd like you to actually know me. I'd like to know you too, the real you, not the imaginary struggling sister I created in my head. Good. But Michael, yeah, if you marry Victoria, she needs to understand that respect isn't conditional on net worth. I won't tolerate being treated differently now that she knows I have money. I understand. And Sarah, yes, thank you. For what? For teaching us that assumptions about success can blind you to the actual achievements happening right in front of you. After we hung up, I walked out to my office balcony and looked down at the city where I'd built my empire. In the distance, I could see the lights of Bayview Country Club, the venue where Victoria had planned to celebrate her engagement while deliberately excluding the woman who owned the place. The engagement party that should have been happening right now in elegant surroundings with champagne and live music was instead taking place in a children's restaurant with plastic cups and arcade games. It was perfect poetic justice. But more importantly, it had forced my brother to confront his own assumptions and see his sister for who she really was, instead of who he thought she should be. 3 weeks later, Michael called me with news. I broke up with Victoria. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I genuinely was. Ending an engagement is always painful, regardless of the circumstances. No, you're not, and neither am I. Honestly, the past few weeks showed me who she really is. Someone who measures people's worth by their bank account balance and treats service workers like they're invisible. What was the final straw? She started trying to become your best friend, calling you constantly, asking about business opportunities, wanting to be invited to your hotels and resorts. It was disgusting. The same person who said you were too poor for our engagement party suddenly wanted to be your business partner. I'd fielded several of those calls and declined politely each time. Victoria's sudden interest in friendship had been transparent and opportunistic. I'm proud of you for recognizing that. I should have recognized it years ago. I should have seen how she treated people she thought were beneath her, waitresses, hotel staff, anyone she perceived as having less money or status. Live and learn. Sarah, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you dating anyone? Are you happy? Do you have the kind of life you want? I smiled. It was the first time in years that someone in my family had asked about my personal happiness rather than making assumptions about my life. I'm very happy, Michael. I love my work, I have great friends, and yes, I'm seeing someone wonderful, another entrepreneur who builds sustainable housing projects. That's great. I'm glad you found someone who appreciates what you do. His name is David, and he knew about my business success before he knew my last name. It's refreshing to be with someone who sees my achievements as exciting rather than intimidating. Will you introduce me to him sometime? I'd like to meet the man who makes my incredibly successful sister happy. I'd love that. 6 months later, Michael and I met for dinner at the restaurant in my Napa Valley resort, the historic hotel I'd been purchasing the night of his disastrous engagement party. He brought his new girlfriend, Anna, a public school teacher, who knew exactly who I was because she'd read about my education philanthropy work. As we sat on the terrace overlooking the vineyards, sharing a bottle of wine from the resort's private label, Michael raised his glass. To Sarah, he said, who taught me that success isn't always visible from the outside, and that judging people by appearances says more about the judge than the judged. And to family, I added, who can learn to see each other for who we really are instead of who we assumed each other to be. Speaking of which, Anna said, I have to tell you, my students are huge fans of your literacy program. The libraries you built in underserved schools have been incredible for our community. Michael looks surprised. Sarah has a literacy program? The Williams Foundation has built 47 libraries in low-income schools across California, I explained. We also provide teacher training and reading comprehension programs. I had no idea. There's a lot you didn't know about my work, Michael. The business success is just one part of it. Will you tell me about the foundation? I'd love to understand the full scope of what you've built. As the sun set over the Napa Valley vineyards, I found myself sharing stories about the schools I'd helped, the teachers I'd supported, and the thousands of children who now had access to books and educational resources because of the wealth I generated through Williams' Hospitality Group. It was the first time in years that I talked about my achievements with a family member who was genuinely interested in understanding rather than judging. The woman Victoria thought was too poor for an engagement party had used her wealth to create opportunities for others, funding education programs, building affordable housing, supporting environmental initiatives, and creating thousands of jobs through ethical business practices. But the most valuable thing I'd built wasn't measured in dollars. It was the self-respect that came from staying true to my values, regardless of other people's assumptions, and the satisfaction of proving that success and humility weren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well, but sometimes, if you're very fortunate, living well becomes the foundation for healing relationships and helping others understand that worth isn't determined by wealth, but by character, contribution, and the courage to build something meaningful in the world. As I fell asleep that night in my Napa Valley resort, surrounded by the success I'd built while others thought I was failing, I realized that Victoria's cruel dismissal had given me an unexpected gift, the opportunity to show my family who I really was and to build a relationship with my brother based on truth instead of assumptions. The engagement party she'd ruined had become the beginning of something much better, a family connection built on genuine respect and understanding, rather than judgments about bank account balances.